the last 4 or 5 years there are no fishing on the lake. The Ministry of Agriculture
So if you took a picture of that, filter out a little bit and balance the light,
Isn't that pretty?
Okay, so we're on the Sea of Galilee at sunset. So I just tried to get a sun as it was going below the horizon. So now we're going to take a boat ride.
of it, that will be the Valley of the Pigeon, which is one of the main roads, part of the Via Maris. Via Maris, the road of the sea, from Egypt to Mesopotamia. If we look at the straight mountain after the cliff, move to the left, it goes down, and there is another mountain that goes up with a needle. You see the needle? Yeah. The needle is actually a water tower built out of a cement on the top of the city of Tiberias. And the city of Tiberias right now, it's in the haze, but you see it from the water tower down and left on the hillside till it reached the water. A little bit further from where the city reaching the water, that will be the ancient Tiberias, the hot springs of Tiberias, built as a city by Herod Agrippa, more or less at the time of Jesus. Doubtfully Jesus walked through the city because it built it over a top of a Jewish cemetery with a lot of pagan temples, so It took hundreds of years of Jewish invention to make it kosher to go into Tiberias. Further down, where you see the mountain goes down to the water, and
All right. Yes.
Let's figure this out. So, Tiberias is over here, and we just came from Mount Arbel, and this is the pass. And over here is where he fed the fishes at Capernaum, up here, which you can hard to see, but that was where the church was, or his synagogue on the northwest side.
the lake. Remember this morning you had the reaffirmation of the baptism service over there. And then we drove further to the south towards Beit She'an, visit Beit She'an, drove to Cana for lunch, drove to Tzipori, came back here. So, where the mountain goes down, mountains goes up. And what you see is actually the southern end of the Golan Heights going all the way and straight over there about on the hillside. That will be our hotel. Long time ago, yes. And then if you look carefully, you see on the hillside, see where when you look at these plastics, you have three sections, left, center, and right. Between the left and the center, you have a gap. Go down straight, and you see Peter Primacy, and a little bit more to the left from it, the feeling of the mountain. We continue along this shore, and you're coming to Kibbutz Gen Nosar, and the site of the beautiful museum that we visited yesterday. Use the facilities today, very important. And we just took the boat away. This lake, to be precise, is
that as I was sitting by the sea yesterday thinking about all the things that happened here, all the stories, one of which we'll read in just a moment, that those disciples could have surely, after the death and resurrection of Jesus, would have said, remember when, back on the Sea of Galilee, and what happened. And Mishi said yesterday, I think it was yesterday, could have been last week, called this the cradle of Christianity. And I've been thinking about that. And I think another word for that, for me, is that this is the playground of Christianity. And when I think about that, outside of my office is the LPS playground. On a playground, what do? We run around, we learn, we fall, we break our arm, we make up games. We do things that form us and shape us, that later down the road make us who we are. And we have literal and metaphorical playgrounds all throughout life. For me, one of those is my home church that I grew up in. Not only did I grow up there in my youth group, it's where I had my first ministry job, and I have a lot of remember when moments. Some where I metaphorically broke my arm and did stupid things, some that I look back fondly, but they shaped me and made me who I am. And I fall back on those memories even still today as I think about the ministry that I do, and there's playgrounds for you. Places that shaped you and made you who you are, and sometimes they're a football field, sometimes they're a school, sometimes they're your first place of work. And so I think about, as we come to the sea, one of those remember when stories, and the one that we're about to read, about Jesus walking upon the water. And as we know, Peter does step out of that boat, bravely, boldly, stupidly, we're not sure. And for a moment he does, and then he sinks. And then I think about where we began. And later down the road, when Peter is on the top of a roof in Jaffa, and he gets the invitation to go down to a Gentile's house, it surely must have been like stepping out of another boat. And maybe he remembered when, this playground. He remembered these early days, these formative moments, this small little corner that shaped everything else he did beyond these lakes. And that is what God does for us too. And so I want to read this to set that up and let Jason
That's Hebrew.
give us some words about this story that we all remember. Immediately he made disciples get into a boat and go on ahead to the other side while he dismissed the crowds. And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. But by this time the boat, battered by the waves, was far from the land, for the wind was against them. And early in the morning he came walking toward them on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified, saying, "It is a ghost." And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them and said, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." He said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat, started walking on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he noticed the strong wind, he became frightened, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." Jesus immediately reached out his hand and caught him, saying, "You have little faith. Why did you doubt?" When they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God."